I promise I'm not trying to make it a point on this channel of deliberately forming controversial opinions on movies because I think it makes me look cool or edgy. I mean, if anything, it'd be easy for me to say every movie's great, especially the popular ones, because it's probably going to get me the nicest comment section, and this movie, well, won't. And I went into this Superman movie really, really wanting to like it because I like Superman, I like DC. In fact, I'm a bigger fan of most DC films than I am of the Marvel films. Not necessarily the DCEU, but Batman films and other films that DC have made outside of the DCEU. And the last Superman movie we got was Man of Steel, and that was far from perfect. But I was already skeptical of this movie before it released because I heard that James Gunn was going to be directing it. And it turns out he wrote and directed the movie. And I was worried that this was going to be a problem because I thought he was going to take this movie in a direction tonally that I wouldn't enjoy. And after seeing the movie, I can confirm that my reservations were proven to be valid. Man of Steel was weird because it made what was quite a wholesome character insanely dark and gritty. And that just was weird. And with this new movie, I fear they've slid too far in the opposite direction. James Gunn's vibrant style when it comes to colours, characters and dialogue worked for Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which, has a talking raccoon, and other DC franchises like the Suicide Squad. But I just don't think the marveliness works for this movie. It's not a silly movie about a talking raccoon in a spaceship or a bunch of third-rate superhumans fighting a giant starfish. It's a god who has been sent on a mission, apparently to destroy humanity, inserting himself into geopolitical conflicts and attempting to stop a black hole from consuming the Earth. Now, tonally, that feels like something that maybe could be taken sort of a bit more seriously. I think a common misconception a lot of people have is that Superman is a corny character. I mean, my friends and I have had this discussion. Superman isn't corny. He is a good guy. He can often appear soft or emotional, but he is not corny. This Superman is corny. Superman doesn't really make jokes due to the fact that he's, saving the world all the time. Superman is the archetype of a good guy, a stoic, quiet man who always does right. He's not Spider-Man, making all these silly quips, because Spider-Man's a teenage boy, and he's not Deadpool. Deadpool uses humour as a vice because he's so mentally and physically tortured by everything he's experienced in his undying life. But when you've got Superman, this guy who's always been seen as like the perfect superhero, making silly little quips and jokes, it's not even silly and quirky anymore, it's just stupid. Like, this movie should have been a cartoon. That's the kind of vibe it felt. And you can tell by the art style, everything's very bright and colourful. It felt like a cartoon, not like a live-action, big Hollywood budget movie. Like, really, the evil villain brings his dumb influencer girlfriend along to all of his evil deeds and just talks about him in front of her. That's not silly and quirky. That's not a little gag in a movie. That's an essential part of the plot. That's just stupid. Lex Luthor's ultimate plan is for a war in the Middle East to take off so he can take over part of the land and become king. I mean, first of all, that's a little bit on the nose, don't you think? It feels very strange and distasteful to make a movie this openly political and have it be this silly. I mean, you get the most Jewish-looking guy in the world to be the evil Middle Eastern dictator, and his plan is to slaughter a bunch of brown people and take their land for no reason. Like the bloodshed we're seeing in the news all the time. And then the next thing you know, we've got a gag about a flying dog not doing as he's told. Like, that shift in tone is just jarring. You can't try and give your take on a very real conflict that this movie is clearly referencing, that is happening in the real world, and taking quite a strong stance on it as well. I know, I mean, it's a safe take, but it is still a strong one. And then all of a sudden they make a gag about Green Lantern giving his group of superheroes a bad name. And then you would just expect the audience to just be like, ha ha, what a silly movie. The stakes never really feel significant either. Everything's goalpostish, constantly moving. Like, it starts off, a war in the Middle East could take off. I see, that's pretty bad, but I mean, wars happen all the time. And then all of a sudden, there's a black hole being ripped in the earth and everyone's going to die. But it's okay because we could just press this undo button and fix everything. Oh, that was convenient, wasn't it? Also, all world conflicts can be avoided from now on. All you need to do is just murder the leader of the country without discussing it with other nations or assessing the global ramifications for it. But did you see Superman? He made a joke. God, that's... Superman, you so silly. I just think this whole movie was dumb. The plot was stupid. It was just changing constantly. The decisions of the characters that are made, that Lex Luthor's girlfriend makes, just in every way. The decision Lex Luthor makes that don't really make any sense. Like, he has Superman's DNA. That's how he got into the thing. And he can't figure out that Superman is Clark Kent, a guy who just takes off his glasses. Really? Okay. And especially, the ending didn't make sense either, you know, just the undo. And especially the completely unnecessary shoehorning of Supergirl at the end. It's a shame, because I actually really like the cast. I think David Corenswet, is that how you say his name? Is the perfect Superman. He has the look, the hairstyle, the physique. He has the voice, the mannerisms. I think he's a perfect Superman, and I think he could definitely go a long way with his character. Maybe even better than Henry Cavill did. Nicholas Hoult was the best part of the whole movie, in my opinion, when he played Lex Luthor. You could just tell he's so free and really enjoying being this maniacal, evil guy. You know, and it's just a shame that the story just wasn't fitting of their talents, you know? It's clear by the hiring of James Gunn and the similarities to Marvel that this movie is supposed to be the setup for a larger franchise. You can tell by the forced shoehorning of Supergirl that they used to do in all of the Marvel movies, and, you know, they had James Gunn, and they had Green Lantern, but they didn't have the popular one, the Hal Jordan, the one that we all know. They had the goofy, silly one that no one really likes, just because it felt more Marvel-y to do it. I just hope this isn't going to be a redo of the first DCEU, which crashed and burned in spectacular fashion, and that was in large part due to the fact that they were copying Marvel and not adding any originality of their own. And I also hope this future DC cinematic universe doesn't ruin other projects, like, for example, the Matt Reeves' Batman universe. And I hope that they're kept separate, you know. One, because the dark, gritty, realistic version of Batman wouldn't work at all in this silly cartoon Superman universe. And likewise, the corny Superman wouldn't fit in the dark, gritty, realistic world of the Batman either. I mean, you know, there's obviously a movie like The Suicide Squad, which they're definitely going to try and integrate, but that was also directed by James Gunn, so that would fit tonally a lot better. But please don't fuck with Batman. I'm still hopeful for future DC projects. I just hope they make the characters and their stories a lot more interesting this time. I mean, say what you will about the Man of Steel, but at least Superman had character progression in this movie, you know? He learns to come to terms with his powers and ultimately breaks his moral code but becomes more human because of it. But in this movie, Superman starts as an uncompromising good guy. During the main conflicts, he remains an uncompromising good guy. And at the end of the movie, he still feels like the same uncompromising good guy. And I know people always say, oh, but it's nice to see a character stay consistent to themselves. That's only when there's a real struggle. There was never really any struggle for Superman in this. Even when the whole message came out about how he was secretly, you know, how his parents wanted him to enslave, that was only a relevant point for, like, maybe not even a quarter of the movie. And then he does one good thing and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, you know, he's a good guy, even though he'd been doing good things the whole time. He was always a good guy. He never changed. It's just the perception of him did. But the perception of him didn't even make sense, you know? At the end of this, he's still the same person. He hasn't changed or hasn't gone through any conflicts. And he's really ultimately learned nothing. And even when characters stay consistent throughout the story, they always learn something. I feel like this Superman didn't really learn anything at all. I think he's still the exact same sort of naive but well-intentioned guy that he always was. I guess my final criticism can be summarised as just, this doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like an ad for an upcoming superhero universe. That's sort of how the later Marvel projects have always felt, and it's sort of the same here, but a lot earlier on in the universe's life cycle. There was no time put into an actual story. They just don't really care about that. It's just to try and make sure that they can make another movie and another movie and another movie. This movie ultimately served the purpose of just showing the direction which DC is ultimately going, and it's the Marvel direction because it leads to just pools and pools of money. But what did you guys think of the movie? I'd love to hear your opinions on it. I'm sure my opinion's wrong, and I'm sure you'll let me know that in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. If you hate my opinion, also leave a like. I mean, you can leave a dislike as well, but it's fine because no one's ever going to see it. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.